welcome back to the ACE Football Academy. I am Coach Dunham, joined alongside Coach Hamilton. Today we are discussing kind of an important topic here. We're really talking about winning, but when does winning really matter? And the first impression of most American is, well, winning always matters. So we're going to get into some details about not just winning games, and kind of define winning and how it matters person to person, per team, per club, maybe as a family, so to speak. Because there's other ways we can look at this, but the main thing people looking at is, well, what's the score of the game?
Correct.
And I think that's the obvious answer there is, did we win the game? Did we score the most goals? Winning matters. Winning makes things fun.
Yeah.
But especially in youth sports, winning doesn't always mean I score the most goals. Sometimes it's little Johnny has had a rough time putting good crosses. Well, today he put in enough crosses in where we score 2 goals off his crosses.
Yeah.
That's a win for a coach.
Absolutely. And we, so I guess you just determine like kind of what you said. Yes, it's the score line. But the players on your team and then your team in general should have personal and team goals for every match, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we worked on switching the fields in training switching the point of attack in training all week. I want to see us do that 4 times in this match. And if we do that, that's a win. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for my girls, it's always score off of a corner. And if we do that, that's a win. Right? And you want to accumulate those little wins, because I think what this kind of goes back to is sometimes based on your team or the league you play in, winning the score line can be really difficult.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so if that is the only win you're going to give your team is we won 2-1, then you're not going to win anything all season.
Yeah, and I love the topic you just brought up about setting goals. Shout out to the Bethlehem Championship girls team.
Yeah.
Where Coach Diaport talked about, we had boxes that we're checking off for the season and for the game. And let's say we're setting goals per game. And for each game, I've got 5 goals. What if one game we checked off all 5 boxes in a game? That's a massive win.
Absolutely.
And development, personal growth, team growth. Maybe we only checked off 3 boxes. We're in game 5, and every game we only checked off 1 box a game. Well, now we got 3 in a game.
Yeah.
So I think setting goals per game or for the season is a huge way of making those achievements towards winning within the team itself.
Yeah. And I'm going to brag on myself a little bit here. I do this. I haven't done it a lot recently, but I'm glad we're having this conversation because now it's in my brain. Like, I got to bring that back. But I used to make 3 ice cream goals. That's what the girls called them. Ice cream goals, right? Yeah. And all they had to do was check off one of those boxes. And it was like score off of a corner, score in the first 10 minutes. We had an issue with starting games fast, so I had to find something to make them start fast. And then it was do X that we've been working on in training, right? So as I mentioned earlier, build out of the back 4 times, successfully 4 times, right? So, and then, there were games we lost on the score line, but they were like, Coach, we scored first, or Coach, we switched the fields 5 times, and our goal was to do it 3. And so I would bring ice cream to training, the next training.
Yeah.
And it's just so easy to do things like that, yes, do they want the ice cream? They do, but it also develops that winning mentality, especially at the youth level.
Well, they're also gaining awareness of why those boxes matter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going in a game, okay, we scored on a corner kick, whoop-de-doo. We achieved something.
Yeah.
That we discussed as a team that we felt was important.
Yeah.
Because if the coach is writing on the board, it's probably for some kind of developmental purpose. just like you said, we have struggled to score and start games fast.
Yeah.
So now, if we score in the first 10 minutes, we've achieved
Yep.
something. Or we taught this many times. Players are terrified to head the ball, especially on corner kicks.
What a great point.
Checking the box off of that.
Yeah.
That's a big old check.
Yeah.
I scored on a corner kick.
Yeah.
So we're developing by rewarding them by certain things. And I love that idea. Of course, the next thing we're going to look at is when we're talking about winning, comparing youth compared to the pros. Well, the pros, their life depends on winning.
I mean, the coach's
The
job,
coach,
yeah.
his life depends on winning.
Yeah.
You know, if the player isn't scoring goals or preventing goals, they're going to get sold off to somewhere else, or their careers are going to be over.
Yeah.
Well, I guess sooner than they expected, at least. Just like you said, the coach, if I'm coming in and I lose my first 5 matches, I'm already on the hot seat. Now, in the youth level, I think this is where I get irked a little bit, where parents are so concerned about the win-loss record. My question is, are you watching the games to see what's really happening? My boys' team, we went up 2 divisions this season. Pretty big leap. And I'm like, oh boy, that's a big leap. I think we'll be okay, but man, we'll see what happens. Every game has been a 1-goal differential. And I've already got parents saying, oh, do we have the right coach? Should we keep this guy?
Well, and unfortunately for your situation that you're speaking of, just so our listeners are aware, unfortunately, that 1 goal has most of the time gone to the other side. And so you are very competitive, but when they look, all they see is, well, we lost that game and we lost
That's
that
exactly
game. We lost
the
that
problem.
game.
And I keep saying, anybody's asked me, we have competed in every match we've played so far.
Yeah.
You know, we've had a couple mistakes that they've executed on, but we're scoring goals in every game.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had great moments. And I think I need to get them to understand, look, this is a part of their development.
Yep.
Sometimes you can't go 1,000 miles per hour, but at the youth level, you've got to have the understanding of, are my kids developing into better soccer players?
Well, and I mean, you want to talk about winning. I'm sorry, this is really bad conversation. I'm trying to pull up my message. I got a message tonight from a fellow coach who ran into a parent at the fields tonight, and I don't want to give a ton away because they might listen, but ultimately he was like, yeah, my U5 kid is awesome. He scored I'm reading quick. He scored 91 goals this season. That's what we're counting at the U5 level? Like, we got a problem there, right?
It's a big problem.
And
And I'm glad they're proud of their kid, but
absolutely.
is your kid just very, very athletic?
Right.
That's probably what it is. Does that mean he's going to score 90 goals when he's 15? The answer is no.
And if he is, shout out. Like, hope he's on my
Give me
team.
some Lamine Yamal replica going on here.
Yeah. Let's go, Coach.
All right, Coach, let's go to our next segment here about why winning matters and when it matters. Coach, we've talked about this on this podcast numerous times about building a winning mindset. You know, we're developing real resiliency, getting kids to focus more in practices, holding themselves accountable on games instead of shouting at somebody else for making mistakes.
Right.
You know, these things lead to more wins.
Yes.
When I have a team that's resilient, focused, and accountable, well, I've got champions on my team now. And if I get parents to understand that, and I got them seeing that as well, now I've got an environment where we're developing not just great attitudes, but winning attitudes, that competitive edge, and a team mindset of achieving our goals to win games.
Well, and to your point, and to what we talk about all the time, like, the last thing I say to my team, my girls, when they step on the field is, hey, if they beat us because they're the better soccer team, fine. But they will not out-ace us. They will not outwork us. And that is the last thing I say to them. And I tell them I love them, and they pray and cheer and go on the field. Mm-hmm. But building that mindset of, hey, they may be better than us at the soccer stuff, but we're going to have that positive attitude. We're going to be committed to what we've worked on in training, and we're going to work our tails off in this match. And guess what? It's led to a lot of wins.
And I think the reason why that matters is their ace. They're probably not going to grow up to be a pro soccer player.
Yeah.
They're going to grow up to be an adult. They're going to get a job, and they're going to deal with difficult situations.
Mhm.
Well, if I'm building their resiliency,
Yes.
their focus, their accountability, that's an employee everybody wants to work with.
Well, and we just did a whole episode on resiliency,
Absolutely.
right? And what a powerful word. And when I asked my team that I'm working on that with, what they were just like, I don't know what that means. Right? So you talk about it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's us. Well, you're right, it is us.
Yeah.
And it is so it takes the score line out of it, right? And we're going to get into the score line in a little bit, and when does that score line really truly matter? Like, when are you paying attention to the score line? But at all levels, here's the thing. The score line doesn't matter at some levels like it does at others, but your winning mindset, your team culture, those types of things matter all the way through. No matter if you are a U5 player or you are playing for FC Cincinnati or Arsenal or Liverpool. Shout out Liverpool. There you go. You happy? But that mindset matters all the time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this has to deal with healthy motivations, healthy competitions, whether it be competitions within your own team, competing for playing time, for positions, competing each other just to be better.
Yeah.
But then you go to tournaments. We all go to tournaments for one reason, to win.
Absolutely.
That's when the score line definitely matters. And I'm not saying you're still not working on developments and, hoping a player A, achieves some things we've been working on here. But we're paying money and we're driving places to these tournaments. We're expecting to win games. This is a situation where winning and the score line matters 1,000%.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so when you get into that area of tournaments and playoffs, and sorry, you jogged something in my brain I want to write down. But I think healthy competition is so important. Like, your players, you want your players to show up and like each other at training and things like that, but you also want your second string striker saying, "Coming for your spot today, coach." You want that, right? You want that healthy competition, because all it's going to do is to make your team better.
Yeah, coach. Let's move on to our next segment here. When winning, should it matter? Now, it's an odd statement to make, even as I'm making it here. What we're saying is, what's the downsides of focusing solely on the score line? And when you're talking about the younger ages, 12 years and younger, really, when they're really learning the game, understanding the basics, developing those basic skill levels, if you're pushing, you got to score goals. Just like you said, this guy said, my kid scored 91 goals. Well, does that mean, was he a team player?
Right.
Did he make a single pass in either one of these games?
Yeah.
Did he ever say, hey, you did good today on the team?
Right.
Hey, you scored a goal today. Awesome. High five, man.
Right.
Or did you get mad because he took a goal away from you? That's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a major downside as far as focusing solely on the winning. You and I love the show Ted Lasso.
Love it.
And there was a guy named Jamie Tart on the series. And the big thing about him is his dad, complete douche, where he focuses on his kid scoring all the goals. And you see how it affected Jamie Tart massively at a personal level. And if anybody has a chance to watch it, the whole series, you'll get it. And I think that's the take home right there. You see what it does to that player. He's a superstar player and has dad issues.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%, right? And so the development stages have got to be skill, confidence, fun, right? That's what we talk about.
Yeah.
And but I know this is where I get so torn on this. Like, you can also at the higher levels, maybe not professional, because the professional soccer is a different beast, and we've already kind of said that because people's jobs and lives are on the line.
Mm-hmm.
But even at the higher levels in the youth game, so varsity soccer, right? If you're winning every game 4-5 to nothing or whatever, but nobody's having any fun,
Mm-hmm.
and we all hate each other, and nobody likes coming to training, we just all happen to be really good soccer players, then would you call yourself a successful team as a coach, as a player? Like, that's kind of where my crossroads comes in in this conversation is, what happens when you're winning, but nobody is building confidence in themselves? Nobody's having any fun. Nobody feels like we're getting any better. We just happen to be at this moment a better soccer team.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to that story you just gave of the youth high player that scored 90 goals, whatever. Yeah. If that trend continues, where the parent is so focused on his kid scoring all the goals, he's not developing soccer skills.
Yeah.
He's solely depending on his athleticism. And what's going to happen is all the other kids around him, while they're working on their passing and their receiving and their crossing, and he's working on, I scored 50 goals last season.
Mm-hmm.
By the time he's about 12 years old, everybody else is passing him up now. Yeah. Their athletic skills are getting to where he's at, but their soccer skills are going way beyond him. And now that kid is dealing with the pressure from dad. He's dealing with fear of mistakes because of mom and dad. And he's probably going to have some burnout because now he's not scoring all the goals. He's falling behind, maybe losing playing time because his soccer skills aren't up to par. And now we've got a kid thinking about quitting soccer because instead of focusing on good habits, we're focusing on skill, building his confidence, and having that fun at U5.
Right.
We're focusing on things that have nothing to do that's going to help him be a better person, a better adult, learning those life skills. And now he's going to quit soccer because he doesn't feel like he's good anymore.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, score is not even kept at U5, right? They were just playing.
That's 100% true.
But anyways, yeah, but you're absolutely right. And how many? I mean, I have 3 players who come into mind immediately that I have coached either at the middle school or high school level that quit before their senior year because of the parent. And
we saw that quite a few times.
And I don't mean that as like
and solid players.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that like as it's not my fault as the coach. I mean that as like, hey, it is truly happening because priorities are not where they're supposed to be. And maybe some of that is on the head coach, right? Maybe the head coach hasn't laid out, hey, here are our priorities, and things like that. And so, but I do think that it's just dangerous territory when you are putting pressure on a kid to get wins at 7 years old.
100%, coach. So let's segue to the next area here of coaching strategies, balancing your development and developing the skills while also developing that competitive edge or the competitive spirit that they have within the team. And like we said before, finding that healthy way of promoting, hey, you need to develop your passing and your first touch skills. While at the same time, I need you having that competitive edge when we do our 3v3s or the 5v5s. I need to see you going after it hardcore. You know, and this is a great way where we already talked about this, Coach, setting those goals, checking those boxes.
Checking the boxes.
It's a great idea to have these kids write down their goals. Now they can see their goals and they can check off themselves. I just had, maybe I completed 10 passes in a game today, or I had 10 give and goes, or I had 3 corner kicks go to the same spot every single time. I'm checking that box off. I'm building confidence in them now. I'm building that competitive edge in there saying, you can do this. So a good coach knows those strategies, finding ways of development, of skill, while also developing competitive edge.
Yeah, and I mean, you call it promote development, also encouraging competitive spirit. Competitive spirit doesn't mean that we win every single game.
That's true.
Competitive spirit means that we're battling, we are giving it our ace, we're working on the things that coach asks us to work on, whether it is in a match or in training. But we do have that competitive spirit. I think that setting goals portion of this is so important, and it's something that I'm glad we've done this episode tonight, because I need to get back to it. Where if your goal to go into every match, if the lone checkbox there in every match is, did we win? There's going to be a lot of matches throughout your career where you don't get to check that box, right? And if that's who you are, if that's who your team is, and you want to make that a checkbox, then fine, right? If that's going to be your 5th or 6th checkbox, did we win? I think that was a checkbox for you. You mentioned Coach Diapore and Bethlehem earlier.
Yeah.
I think did we win ultimately was a checkbox for them, right? I mean, I think some of their checkboxes were make it to the state tournament, make it to the Elite Eight. So yeah, that it is okay to check a we won the game box, especially at that level. But if that's the only box that's on your table, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the next part of this is, and you do a great job of this with your teams, communicating, having those one-on-one conversations with your players about those goals and checking off those boxes. We got to have those conversations with those parents. And that is a difficult conversation. Parents are very protective of their kids. Mm-hmm. But this guy here, a coach needs to come up to him and say, I need you to understand, I love that your kid's scoring all these goals. Yeah. However, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this kid. I'm just assuming things here.
Me too.
But
me too.
Is he being a good teammate? Do you see him high-fiving other kids? Is he congratulating other kids? Is he making a single pass in a game? We love that he's scoring goals and we're winning games, man. But how much is this still going to carry over when he's 15 years old, getting into high school? So having those conversations, while difficult, extremely important, especially that bond and connection and chemistry with your own players, but getting that understanding with those parents.
Well, and for coaches, I'm going to contradict you a little bit here. I think it is difficult when you have to have that conversation at the end of the season or halfway through a season. But if you have a good, solid parent meeting and you're like, hey, here are our priorities this season, right? And again, I don't think either one of us, especially at the level that we coach, are saying that winning doesn't matter. Because if we said that, that would be incorrect. Mm-hmm. But I think having winning should never be the number 1 priority on our list. But it can be on our list, but it shouldn't be number 20 on our list either, right? I mean, you see all those studies that people say they're like, we asked soccer players the top 5 reasons they play, and like winning is number 4 or whatever, whatever. There's all go Google it, you'll find all kinds of stuff. But in that opening parent meeting, if you say, hey, we're gonna check boxes this season, and if we win a lot of games in the process, then great, good for us. But if we don't, we're still going to celebrate the boxes we checked.
1,000%. And hopefully you have parents that get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where, coach, we love to win.
Oh, nobody loves. I tell my parents and players, nobody wants to win more than I do.
We play to win.
Yeah.
I'm playing in an adult league. I'm an old dude. I play to win, even at my age now.
How'd y'all do last weekend?
We won,
Yeah.
and we kicked the poop out of this other
There
team,
you
and
go.
it was fantastic. I played goalie, made some great saves. You should see me play, man.
I'll bring the VO next weekend.
So we're not saying winning doesn't matter when it comes to the scoreline.
Yeah.
Because absolutely, winning matters because, as we said before, it makes it more fun. You want to come back to win again. And it builds that confidence. But sometimes your team checks all those boxes and still doesn't get that win.
Correct.
As far as the scoreline goes. Like we said 1,000 times, we talked about effort, putting in your ace. You know, this past weekend, I told you about my boys' game. They lost 5-4. It was one of those games where you're just like, dude, that was awesome.
Well, and I told you a very similar story.
Yeah.
We drew 3-3, but the game itself was just fun. It was hard
And
fought.
I would love for parents to understand, just because you lost the game, doesn't mean your players lost the game.
Correct. Well, and I'll swing things. A couple of weeks ago we talked about my overwhelming loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
We played that exact same team on this past weekend, and we played really, really well. We fell behind 2-0 early, but we were down 2-0 at halftime. We scored about midway through the second half, make it 2-1, and then we just battled the rest of the second half, and we had our chances to draw. We missed a PK. You know, things just didn't go our way.
Yeah.
But when you look at those 2 weekends against that team, they just beat you 5-0. And then you play them a week later, and it's 2-1 in a really high quality match. Like, in my book, that match was a win. And I know it doesn't look like that in the standings, and I know some of my parents don't feel that way, but for me, that match was a win.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things that frustrates me is when we beat a team 3 times in a row, and the 4th time they beat us, and parents are like, Coach,
Yeah.
how in the world did we lose to this team?
Yeah.
Because they scored more goals than us. What do you want me to tell you here? And the point I'm trying to make is, just because we beat them 3 times before, doesn't mean that should never happen, them beating us. Just like you had here.
Yeah.
The team beat you 5-0, and the next game it got reversed.
Yeah.
It's why we play the games.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you and I both have that Central Southern experience. Like, how many times has the team that won in the regular season lost the district final?
1,000%.
I mean, so I think it's just the scoreline matters. So, Coach, we got 90 seconds left. I want to do our final quote, our final call to action, because I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But on the spot, when do wins and losses matter?
When do wins and losses matter?
At what point in time in your as a coach do you actually start thinking, okay, I want to win the division, or you know, I want to win Challenge Cup or State Cup or President's Cup or whatever?
I think it depends on the development of your team. Let's say we've been working on passing here, we're working on first touch here, we're working on, and they've checked every box every season.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, hey, you know what?
We need to win.
We're going to this season to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think my hard answer is like when you transition into 11v11. It's kind of time to start.
That's a good point.
Kind of time to start putting some wins together.
Yeah.
But to your point, I put a lot of pressure on my 2012s a couple of years ago because we were checking all those boxes, right? All right, Coach. Let's finish up real quickly.
Yeah, folks, we want to end this with a quote that we've read, and this really is the take home.
Mm-hmm.
It's focus on the process, and the results will come. It's the perfect way to end this episode here. There is a process in your child's development. It's building their ace, resilience, focus, accountability. attitude, commitment, and their effort. It all matters because we're building adults here.
Yeah.
And if you rely on the process, you're gonna build a really good kid here. And the results may not happen week after week after week, but over time, the result will be there. And you'll see it one day. Be like, oh wow, this kid's really come a long way.
Yeah.
And he deserves a lot of credit.
Absolutely, Coach.
Folks, we are the Ace Football Academy. I'm Coach Dunham. That's Coach Hamilton. Go kick some ace.